country who never felt represented, never felt reflected. And what me and my company and my journalists that I've hired under me, and we have about 10 journalists, but we have about 10 other people who are not journalists who sustain this company, have done, is try to be a proper reflection of the people we serve.
Thank you, Mr. Gomez. I admire your passion. You can expand later on another question to you. Thank you. Now we go to the Liberals for 6 minutes. Mr. Coteau, Michael, 6 minutes, please.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair. And before I start with my questions, I just wanted to say, Mr. Gomez, I remember when you were on TV and the work you did, and you're an outlier, a young Black man, holding the microphone, an anchor, talking about the issues on the street, talking to people, and it was very impressive. It was very different. It was very refreshing. And then I remember when you left, because there was a bit of buzz around that, to start your own company, I was like, how could a guy on top of his field actually leave and do something like go into the wilderness? So I just want to say, I appreciate...
Please be careful, Mr. Coteau. He went to BC. We are not the wilderness.
I'm talking about going into digital, like starting brand new, Chair. Leaving an established media company and starting a new company is a big risk. And I just want to say, I noticed what you did, and a lot of people did, and I just want to say thank you for your work, and thank you for your advocacy here today. Many people are obviously paying attention to the work you're doing, and you're rewriting the entire business. So thank you for being here today. But I want to turn my attention to Miss Paradkar. Did I say it right?
Paradkar, yeah.
I apologize. What your opening, your 5 minutes, I found it very intriguing, because you talked a lot about trust, and MP Shields talked about trust as well. And it's interesting. For the first time ever, I started to think about, when you brought, I think you brought some statistics around politicians and reporters. And I started to think about politicians. Like, there's been a massive movement to subsidize politics over the last couple of decades. Like, if you make a political donation in this country, every single politician in this room, if someone donates to them, that person gets a subsidy. If they don't donate $400 federally, they get, I think it's 75% back, the actual donor. And then I believe there's a movement in many different countries where the federal, or in Toronto, for example, there's an actual allocation from the city coffers back as a direct rebate to the donor, and even political parties get federal subsidies. So it's interesting. The reason they did this is because back in the old days, it was people who were really rich who controlled politics. And, I've started to think about this when you were talking that, in media, there's big interest involved. And, we've gone from back in the old days where these news barons had control to, these companies now moving, these super companies that, a company like Apple is 3 times the size of the Canadian GDP. They control narrative. They have a lot of influence. So I do think that we need to revisit the entire way we do things. And you talked about, looking at the not-for-profit model, and you brought in AI. And, the piece around, so these companies are not only, with AI creating content based on old content and sources that, reporters some in the room have written before, but they actually can take the content and put it on different platforms and profit off that as well. So do you have any other models you can share with us in regards to, and I'm assuming if there was a actual forum, a national forum on media, this would be a place where new models of doing business would come forward. Besides the not-for-profit sector, have you heard of any other models that may come forward, that have come forward to revisit the way we do news in this country?
Thank you for that. The only other model that I know of is the donations model that The Guardian has. And I do believe that if those donations are also publicly subsidized, either by governments or if there's separate funding tie-ups, as I mentioned with AI companies, then that's a viable option. People don't value what comes for free. But they will value and will take in something that they pay for. Unfortunately, we are in an ecosystem where information is free, but information is often conflated with news, which it is not. And the news gathering process, which is amplified, which is distorted, which is, shorn of context, and then distributed for free, is often itself an expensive process, as Brandon Gomez just testified as well. So donations from individuals, donations from local companies, maybe to fund local investigations, donations from big companies, and all of these with the idea, with the absolute condition that they have no say, no editorial say.
Right.
Because that is where it starts to become, it can get dicey when you have big companies coming in. But there is a way to do it with keeping with people having no say in the independence. So those are some of my suggestions.
I would love to, if there was this forum that was held to come forward with different types of models, because there are, tax incentives and things like that could play obviously a role in putting incentive. I want to speak to Ms. Payne. How much time do I have left, Chair?
Seconds, Mr. Cotto.
2 minutes?
14 seconds. I'm sorry.
14 seconds.
My accent is getting in the way.
Well, maybe I'll take this opportunity to say thank you to all of our guests here today. Thank you so much. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Michael. I go to the Bloc Québécois, Martin Champoux, for 6 minutes, please, Martin.
Merci, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to thank all the witnesses for being with us today. These discussions and meetings are very important for me, but also for members of the committee and for people who work in the media sector. We might be tempted to look at all of the different elements in this major crisis that impact everyone in Canada and Quebec, and it feels like we're 10 years too late to be looking into this. I would like to start by saying, Mr. Gomez, I found your opening remarks very interesting, and what you've said was very measured, and it was a very healthy discussion that you gave us. I believe that your being here and companies like yours will be essential in the future of media. These discussions cannot be had without pioneers in the digital media and other media spheres. I would like to ask a question to Mr. Chamberlain. We worked for the same company during the 90s. You were at Radio Media and I was at Astral. We didn't meet, but we did have similar journalists, so we share that tie. So we have quite a few decades of experience in that field. And with Arsenal, you focused on regional media, which could seem to some business people to be a bit of a crazy gamble, considering the state of things. But you're gambling that regional radio has a future. You just purchased 7 Bell Media stations, and we will be receiving Bell Media over the coming weeks. And perhaps I'll be a little less nice with them as I feel like being with you. You seem to have reassured the employees of those 7 stations. Do you believe that the state of those stations is healthy? Will you help them grow? How do you see the future of those purchases? Thank you for the question, Monsieur Champoux. When we purchase stations, it's to make them grow. these are healthy stations. We've purchased stations that were almost about to close their doors, and we were able to build them back up. But I would like to come back to what Mr. Gonez said, actually. We are humble and we want to share this, but I would like to add 2 or 3 things. Some might think that radio is boring, but for me, I find that it is the heart of information in Canada. That's my first point. Secondly, I added that we have digital platforms in all of our regions, which is essential, by the way, because it replaced local newspapers. Our platforms are being looked at. We have hundreds of subscribers and about 70,000 pages that are consulted in a year. We've been talking about Meta since before. And it's not to be for or against the bill, but in my view, Meta did not have an impact on us. Why? Because for 10 years, we've worked to create a relationship with our readers and our viewers. And we bet on reaching those people individually. And so when I see people suddenly panicking, and it's not the first time that Facebook changes its algorithm, for example. We saw BuzzFeed disappear overnight. And so it's important to take responsibility, and I agree with Mr. Gonez in a way. Media outlets need to take responsibility. Traditional media were completely shocked, and that we need to go to the source. Well, of course, we've always had to look at the source, and it's their responsibility to do so. If you look at a reader or a viewer or a listener and you send them to another platform, well, it's normal that that person then stays on that other platform. That's the ABC of business and media. But I believe that there was not enough competition at the time, and they didn't understand that notion. And we sold our soul to the devil. We sent people to competition platforms, and we did that instead of betting on our own platforms. For us, our ecosystem is healthy. We will maintain our jobs and continue to help them grow. You have 30 seconds. We have digital platforms, but we also have online boutiques. We have a structure to help our media.